Escape from Tarkov wipe will be the last wipe ever. Let me explain. So Nikita tweeted out Vipe Zavstra, which is Russian, for wipe tomorrow. And honestly, I didn't even really believe it. Notorious truth tellers at BSG, especially Nikita. But they tweeted out on the official Tarkov account that tomorrow, July 9th at 3 a.m. Eastern, they are going to install patch 16.8, which promises to be the most hardcore wipe of them all. And I think it will be the last wipe ever. Let me explain. They put out 3 separate slides of information for the wipe. The hardcore, extra challenging wipe. This was the first slide. In it, we have increased item requirements for hideout zones. Sure, we need to find more stuff in raid. Great. Hideout zones don't require found in raid items. Oh, even better. So we need more stuff. Doesn't require it to be found in raid. I know that was a big sticking point last wipe for a ton of players. They didn't like that at all. Limited hideout ammo crafts. Great. I honestly, I don't think I've ever crafted ammo in the hideout. It takes 10 hours to craft like 100 rounds. Who cares? And then reduced spawn chance of rare loot. I mean, it was already rare. Why reduce it more? I know a ton of people on Twitter were upset about that, but honestly, not even that big of a deal to me. But the most important part of this slide, flea market disabled. Much like the beginning of last wipe where they disabled it for 2 weeks, which I think were the best 2 weeks of last wipe, it will be disabled for the entire wipe. A phenomenal start. Honestly, it had me excited, but then they released slide 2. And on slide 2, it immediately tanked any excitement I could possibly have. We have secure container restrictions. Honestly, who cares? Great. Let's experiment. You can't store ammo, currency, and certain medicine. Great. Fantastic. That'll be an interesting change. Limited trader interaction. Reduced range of available medicine, weapons, ammo, and armor. Okay. Let's play around with it. Great. Reduce item selling price and increase purchase price. Sure. Maybe make money a little bit harder to get. The most important part of this slide, right in the middle, smack dab, restricted location accessibility. Most of the locations will only be accessible through transitions from appropriate locations. And this singular point tanked any interest I had for a hardcore wipe. Not only does the game currently take about 5-ish minutes to load into a raid, but now you will need to go to map A, 5 to 10 minutes loading into the raid, run the raid. Then you have to transit, spoilers, another 5 to 10 minutes onto the next map. And I can only assume in certain situations, you might have to transit 3 or 4 times, making that singular run, I don't know, another 40-ish minutes of your time. And then that, you know, that doesn't take into account other factors, you know, BSAI interactions that can occur. I don't know. Does Tarkov have a cheater problem? Who knows? Another thing about this that somebody brought up on stream to me, which was a really excellent point, was imagine you have a kill quest on a map that takes 3 transitions to get to. How many players are going to be there? How long would it take to transit 3 maps and then find a player, and then you have a kill quest to kill that player? Oh, oops, I forgot to wear a specific hat. The kill doesn't count. Brother, I will put the game down basically immediately. So that's slide 2. And I honestly didn't think it could get worse. And then we go to slide 3, which 100% boss spawn on all locations. Sure, that could be fun. Reduce experience for killing enemies and dying. Okay, more emphasis on surviving raids. Great. Increased experience for surviving. Again, that ties in with that one. Great. Increased AI difficulty. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. If it's like that one wipe where all the scabs were the best snipers on the planet, I think it could lead to some issues. But I thought to myself, imagine transiting 4 maps and then spawning next to a boss and dying instantly. I think I would just break my keyboard. But we don't know how the transit situation is going to influence the gameplay. I think them even mentioning it is such a turnoff that I can't even get myself excited for it, if we're being honest. These things are relatively clear in their meaning and their messaging, right? Other than, I think, how the transits work. But everything else can be relatively understood. Then we had Nikita tweet, We had 3 pictures explaining only part of the upcoming changes for this hardcore wipe. Various balance changes will be made to trading, availability of weapons, equipment, loot, bot behavior, quests, experience, skill leveling, and other attributes and parameters in order to create a unique experience of playing in harsh conditions. I can only imagine that means just turning everything down. And then he goes on to say several stages of progression are planned within which balance changes will be made. And then follow the news to find out the details. First, we are closely monitoring player feedback and already adjusting balancing changes in addition to planned stages if necessary. And then he said, let's go hardcore. And let me tell you, this picture sums it up. I am going to be this guy the entirety of the wipe, just getting my back blown out as I reach for my weapon, maybe a LEDX that spawns 1 in 200 raids. Who knows? Not only is this tweet relatively confusing, the official account put out a tweet that I think made things even more confusing, which I would say it doesn't surprise me, but what are you going to do? So hardcore wipe in Tarkov. We are carefully monitoring player feedback and would like to provide more details or more clarity on the details of the upcoming wipe, and I cannot express this enough to you. There is no clarity in the next statement. All restrictions indicated in the infographics will be wave-like. As players progress, we have planned sets of changes that will affect the gameplay, including the gradual opening of locations on the location selection screen. What does this mean, and how, more importantly, is this supposed to bring clarity to these 3 graphics, i.e., as players progress? What is that? Does that mean me? Like, me as the player? Like, if I hit a certain level, I get to unlock a certain map? Or players total, the community? Who knows? We have planned sets of changes that will affect the gameplay. Great. Are these the sets of changes? But he said there's only parts of the upcoming changes. Very clear. And then including the gradual openings of locations on the location selection screen, which ties, I can only assume, back to this slide, which is restricted location accessibility. Most of the locations will only be accessible through transitions from appropriate locations. So I don't understand anything. If the case is there will be 3 waves of updates, why put out the slides? Why not just say, we're going to start the wipe like this? And then, you know, when the next patch comes up, we're introducing this wave of things. And then when the next patch comes up, we're going to do this thing. But I don't think that's the case. I think they want to do all of this at once. And because of the players and the community yelling at them, I think they're altering what they want in real time. I think them doing this is such a disservice to the entirety of the community. I know everybody wants to talk about the casuals and the hardcores. Let's do hardcore mode. I've already said in a previous video, I can't imagine coming home from a day of work and wanting to play Tarkov. These sets of changes have blown that up immensely. I could not explain to anybody why I got home from work and I played one transit-filled raid of Tarkov to die to a cheater on the 4th map. I would lose it. Like, if that's how I spent 2 hours of my post-work day, I would straight lose it. That point goes back to a theory that I've had about BSG and Tarkov for a long time. Everything in Tarkov that is good is typically found by BSG on accident, and most things that they attempt to implement are bad. Borderline griefing their own game, bad. I think transits are a prime example of that phenomena. You have a core gameplay loop of going into, like, a core gameplay loop of gearing up, going into raid, running the raid, getting out, doing your thing, right? Everybody, I can't say, I don't think anybody is upset with that gameplay loop in the slightest. I think that gameplay loop is tight and people really enjoy that cycle. It can get a little stale at times, but that cycle, I think, is nice. When you introduce transits and force people to transit, you are now essentially like creating an endless loop, but not a rewarding endless loop. With the amount of issues that transits have had, I cannot see this going well in any meaningful way. Not only do people abuse transits to quick extract from maps, which has been a bug since they were introduced and hasn't been fixed. Smile. People crash in the middle of them. Dude, I can't wait to crash on my second transit trying to do a task. That sounds exciting. That sounds like a really hardcore experience. And oftentimes, a bug as well that occurred with transits for, I think, a wipe and a half to 2 wipes was the ability to spawn with other players that were transiting. As a game, if you are forcing a core gameplay element on a player, it at the minimum shouldn't have any of these issues. But it took them like 2 years to fix the spawning with players situation. And I can't even imagine that it doesn't still happen. They haven't fixed the crashing in transits. And I know people still do the quick extract with transits. I think transits being added to the game, bad. I don't trust BSG ever fixing anything fully. And I don't think forcing this mechanic on people is the way to get people on board with it. All in all, with a hardcore wipe, I think this will be the wipe that we look back on and we say that's when it truly died. I don't think many people are going to play this wipe. I don't think, at least from what I could see, not a ton of people are as excited as previous wipes. I'm excited just because it's a wipe and it'll be interesting. However, my fuse is so short with the game that the first instance of something messing up will essentially kill it for me. And I can't, again, imagine people being excited to do this after a day of work or after doing something else all day. Like, oh, I want to sit down and do one Tarkov raid for 2 hours. I think it is another example of a gross miscalculation by Battlestate Games in accidentally finding the greatest formula of all time and doing another thing that they think is good, but will end up killing the game completely. And if you don't agree with me, tell me in the comments. And if you do agree with me, also tell me in the comments. Make sure to sub to the channel. I stream every day on Twitch. And until next time, say it with me. Peace out. You dig?